because we no longer have Ken Paxton, twice indicted under active FBI investigation, trying to overturn lawfully, legitimately decided elections, but because we have the most badass Attorney General in the United States of America, right here in the state of Texas. Come on! Hey, and speaking of pride, every single one of these public servants and our next member of Congress, Gotv, fills me with pride as a fellow Texan. People who define service, who are out there for each and every single one of us, regardless of the differences between us. You know, in Greg Abbott's Texas, it is you or it is me. He wants us to be afraid of each other and divide our space on our differences from one another. But for those who you just saw on this stage, it is you and me. It's all of us together here in Texas. We're going to do this by and for each and every single one of us. And this is the team that's going to make it happen. One more that we didn't have a chance to acknowledge, and that is Jolanda Jones, one of our new state representatives. She's standing right here. I've got a special place in my heart for Houston, Texas. As Rochelle Garza just mentioned, together all of us ran this extraordinary campaign in 2018. We showed up everywhere for everyone, wrote nobody off, and took no one for granted. You could not be too rural or too Republican represented for us to show up, to listen to and learn from the people that we wanted to serve. You could not be too Third Ward or Cashmere Gardens for us to do the same and listen to those that we wanted to serve in the position of public trust and power. And because of Harris County and Houston, you helped me to become the first Democrat since LBJ in 1964 to win the 4 major metro areas in Texas and the surrounding counties. The largest voter turnout in the state of Texas since 1970. Young voter turnout up 504% from the previous midterm election. Right now. Look, I know we didn't reach 10 troops, we got awful close, but we helped 12 state house Democrats replace Republicans in that institution. We helped Paul Allred and Lizzie Pamela Fletcher flip control of the House of Representatives from Republicans to Democrats and the right hand. And check this out, 17 black women won election to judicial positions right here in Harris County. You have taken the face of criminal justice in America, in the most diverse city in this country. And I'm so very proud to be back with you. But look, that is simply the base upon which we are building tonight. And all that we did in 2018, that was without having Rochelle Garza on the ticket. They had no idea what's coming. But I want to acknowledge this, and Greg Gotv talked a little bit about this, the challenges that all of us face at this moment. And despite the joy that we're feeling in being in the Morocco family's presence right now, and all these great public servants among us, and the joy that I see on your faces right now, and I don't even know if they're serving beer here, but look, no one is more powerful or eloquent on this issue than Rochelle. The fact that in this state, we have the most extreme ban on abortion in America. It begins literally at conception, and there's no exception for rape, and there's no exception for incest, and this takes place at the epicenter of a maternal mortality crisis that is 3 times as deadly for black women. Guarantee you, we are consigning women and girls, make no mistake, in this state, to unnecessary suffering and death because of the cruelty of those in power today. And the darkness that you feel that has descended on this state, literally, you experienced it last February, when in the energy capital of the world, the guy in power could not keep the power flowing to those that he purports to serve. The lights went out, the heat stopped running, the water stopped flowing because it was frozen in your pipes, and 700 human beings in this state lost their lives. An 11-year-old boy in Conroe, Texas, his poor mom could not pile enough blankets on his shivering body, and she found him dead the next morning. A 75-year-old Vietnam-era veteran. In other words, a guy who put his life on the line already once for this country, couldn't charge his oxygen tank inside his house, rolled it out to his truck where they found him dead the next day of hypothermia. Kids who burned up next to their parents as they set flame to their furniture, just trying to keep themselves warm. 700 fucking times that happened in this state last 7 days. And they have insult to injury. The governor orders the price of electricity paid at its highest allowable rate, not for minutes or hours, but for days. Gas soon starts trading at 200 times what it had sold for the day before. Utilities go into bankruptcy. Others take billions of dollars in debt. His best buddies and his top campaign contributors literally make billions of dollars. $11 billion made by energy traders and pipeline corporations. History. And to add insult to injury, this grid is still not fixed. We're no better prepared going into this next winter than we came out of the last one. And each of us, to a person, is paying higher electricity bills as a result. Because that government passed the buck and left it to us to hold the bag. There's an answer to this. We win this election. We weatherize every part of the grid. We connect our grid with the national grid. For those who stole that $11 billion from us, we're taking those bastards to court and getting every penny and bringing down the utility bills, right? We all know that we suffer from an epidemic of gun violence in Texas, and we know about the mass shootings, and we'll talk about those in a minute. But let me just acknowledge this. It has become so common in this state, where we lead the nation in school shootings, where gun violence today is the leading cause of death for kids and for teenagers in Texas, that their names no longer make the newspaper. Their faces are no longer shown on the nightly news. So numbingly common it has become in Texas that we somehow tacitly accept this as the price of living and dying in this state right now. Look, Amy and I are raising 3 kids in our hometown on the border. You got Eagle Pass, you have Brownsville, now you have El Paso. They're in sophomore, freshman, and 6th grade years in world-class public schools. They're well aware that nothing has changed in this state to make it any less likely that they meet the same fate as so many other kids across the state of Texas. Their eyes are upon us at this moment of truth because they don't get a vote or a voice in this election, but through the actions that we choose to take right now. With, as Sylvia said, 6 days left until ballots are cast on the first day of early voting. We cannot be found wanting. We must come through and prioritize their lives ahead of the interests of the NRA or the gun lobby or any politician in the state of Texas for that matter. And lastly, in terms of these challenges, as Lin-Manuel said, this is the toughest state in the union in which to cast your ballot or to get your name on the rolls and be registered to vote. In March this year, 13% of the mail-in ballots cast were rejected. Now look, if that happened in Russia or China or North Korea, I would say, that checks out. These aren't real democracies. They're not like us here in the United States. 246 years to this grand experiment. But today that is us right here in Texas. In fact, one of those who had their ballot rejected is 95 years old. World War II veteran. In other words, this guy put his life on the line for all of us in 1944, landing on that beach in Normandy, France, to fight fascism half the world away and protect democracy here at home. His ballot rejected not once, but 3 times. And finally someone who has better earned the right to vote than that person who put his life on the line for this country. We are going to get it back. When we win this election, automatic voter registration, online voter registration, same-day voter registration, citizen mail redistricting commissions. And I want to tried this one on for size here in Houston. What if, but just what if we replaced Confederate Heroes Day as a celebrated state holiday with Election Day as a celebrated state holiday? Look, we could be forgiven for being tempted to despair in the face of these challenges, of even succumbing or submitting to this, or if we're privileged enough and we have the resources, moving out of Texas altogether. But against all of these challenges are all of us. You chose to be here tonight and commit yourself to the work ahead. And I have found in my life, and it looks like the same holds true for you, that action is the antidote to despair, and it is the key to victory. And if you will commit yourself to the action necessary to win this, that means signing up with these volunteers who are wearing the high visibility yellow vests with the clipboards in their hands. They have open block walking shifts that allow you to sign up and meet your neighbors where they are, and in your own voice, in your own words, from your own heart, describe why this is the most important election of your lifetime. And with your own ears, listen to why this is important for those whose doors you have knocked on. And wouldn't it be some pretty powerful, profound, poetic political justice if the very people targeted for suppression and intimidation in this great democracy provide the margin of victory when we win this on the night of November 8th? You all ready to do this? We win. Rochelle, myself, and Janet, and Jay, and Luke, and Susan, and this extraordinary statewide ticket, buttressed by these extraordinary state representatives and members of Congress, there is no stopping what we're going to be able to do. Like every woman in Texas making her own decisions about her own body, her own future, her own health care, without government intrusion or interference. Like making sure that our educators are paid enough not to work 2 or 3 jobs at this point, focusing on those kids, drawing forth a lifelong love of learning, and when they retire, getting a cost of living adjustment every year going forward so that they can afford their retirement. And I want to be clear to the educators here, the classroom teachers, the counselors, the librarians. I have heard you, and you said, look, after 2 years of pandemic, 2 years of learning loss, 2 years of unimaginable for us adults trauma that these kids have lived through. 100,000 Texans lost their lives. These kids lost their grandparents. Their folks lost their jobs. Their families lost their homes. And you're literally just trying to keep them alive right now. I know that though you're working those 2 jobs and that kid on free and reduced breakfast and lunch doesn't have a meal to go home to at the end of the day out of your own pocket, you pay for it, so there's some calories to burn in their gut while they're doing the homework that you assigned that child in the same dirty pair of jeans and t-shirt and probably Jonas underneath Monday through Friday. By the next Monday, you brought them a new set of clothes so they can hold their head high with pride and learn right alongside the other kids in that classroom. You have said, look, Beto, give me more time with these kids, and I hear you, so we are going to cancel the STAR test in the state of Texas and let you do your job. Right? For those who are foster parents or our fellow Texans who aged out of the foster care system, let me tell you that hurts you as well. I know that we have the worst run foster care program in the United States of America, that we have badly let these children down, that no one except Rochelle Garza ever mentions this as a challenge or a problem in the state of Texas, despite the fact that 100 kiddos lost their lives in CPS care just since the year of our Lord, 2020. Many hundreds more have been trafficked, have been violated, have been abused in our custody, in our care. Greg Abbott, Ken Paxton have been warned about this problem for 8 years and counting and have done nothing. And you actually know what they say when we ask them about this? They try to deflect or dodge or even lie about what's going on. They want to distract you by talking about critical race theory and somehow denying the full truth and facts and story of our country and our state. They'll say, look out for that transgender kid. Watch out for what bathroom they might go into. And even threatening to take those kids away from their loving parents and turn them over where? To CPS custody and care. So listen, we win this election. We invest in CPS. We hold that agency accountable. We try to keep kids with their families when we can. We address the underlying issues that allow us to foster the family, like raising the minimum wage from $7.25 to $15 an hour, like expanding Medicaid in the state of Texas so you can actually see a doctor. And one more thing I want to say before I recognize two heroes that are among us right now that have not received any recognition so far tonight. And that's this. You know, I mentioned that Abbott and Paxton are going to try to scare us about history. They're going to try to demonize and vilify teachers. They're going to attack people based on their sexual orientation or who they love or where they're from or to whom they pray. That's not us. That's not who we are. That's not the core of our values in Texas. Whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, no me importa, the differences do not matter right now at this moment. But more than anything else from Abbott, you will hear about the border and about immigrants and about this invasion that is coming to get us. John Lewis, with whom I was lucky enough to serve for 6 years, we had this saying that, look, each of us and our families came to this country in a different ship. But today we find ourselves in the same boat, right? Maybe your families crossed the Bering Strait over a land bridge 15,000 years ago. A reminder that where we stand and sit is indigenous land right here in the state of Texas. Others, kidnapped in Africa, brought here in bondage and forced against their will to build the wealth and the success and the strength of this country without ever being able to partake in it. And still others, like the O'Rourke's in the 19th century, fled an island where to stay in Ireland meant to die in Ireland. A pandemic, a famine that claimed the lives of more than 1 million people there. And my foremothers and forefathers came to the one place on the planet that would take us in. And that was America. That's the story of this country. It's the genius of who we are, and we lose sight of it at our peril. So think about this. We read the story about the 53 asylum seekers found dead in the back of that tractor trailer in San Antonio, Texas, a little bit earlier this year. Now look, they had already walked and atop a train known as La Bestia, or the Beast, 2,000 miles to flee the countries that they are from, because just like the O'Rourke's in the 19th century, to stay meant to die. And they show up here at our front door, and some coyote or smuggler, or maybe somebody trying to help them, I don't know the full story, says, get in the back of this container in the middle of the hot Texas summer. Now, the container is probably twice or 3 times as high as the stage. It's not easy to climb in. You got to make a conscious decision, and you might even need someone's help to lift yourself up. You don't do that for kicks. You don't do it to steal someone's job. You don't come here to rape somebody or violate the law. You do this to survive. And I want you to put yourself in the mind of that person who's making that decision. One of the beautiful powers we have as human beings is the power of empathy. To place ourselves in the minds and shoes of those who may have a different experience than us, right? So now imagine this. Especially for those of you who've got kiddos at home. You are now in the back of that container, and you reach down, and you grab the hand of your 11-year-old daughter, and you lift her up into that container with you. What would compel you to do that? I would only do that if I had to do that. We've got an 11-year-old child that we are raising in our house. Why in the world would I ever put him in that kind of peril or jeopardy unless it was the only way forward? So this is what I propose. Instead of these stunts where we're busing migrants to D.C. or New York or Chicago, or building 1.5 miles in total of border wall under Greg Abbott, more of a public art project than a security device, if you ask me. $4 billion spent on Operation Lone Star, and we have more encounters at our southern border than before this thing started. What if there were a safe, legal, orderly path for someone to come here, to attempt to claim asylum, and not wait 6 years for that claim to be adjudicated, maybe 6 months or 6 weeks so that they can get an answer, get on with their lives. If you come here to work, especially for a job that we cannot find a Texas-born citizen to do, or if there's a safe, legal, orderly path for you to come here as well. You want to join your family? I want to be with my family too. I don't want to wait in a 20-year line, which is the wait time from India or the Philippines or Mexico today. I don't condone anybody breaking the law, but I sure as hell understand why someone might not want to wait 2 decades to be with their families. Let's make sure there's a safe, legal, orderly path and it's coming to this country. And not only do better for themselves, but do better for all of us. Because I'll tell you what the logical conclusion of Greg Abbott and this rhetoric of invasion is. The day before the El Paso shooting in 2019, Abbott sends out a mailer to the people of Texas, and he says about this so-called invasion, Texans, we must defend ourselves. We must take matters into our own hands. There's a young man in North Texas, the city of Allen, orders an AK-47. When that gun comes in, his mom calls the cops in Allen and says, "What in the living hell does my son need with this kind of firepower?" And she may have signaled some other signs of distress in that young man's life, but because we don't have a red flag law on the books, the cop said, "I'm sorry, man, nothing we can do for you. You're on your own. Good luck and goodbye." He drives that gun 650 miles, and before walking into that Walmart, posts a manifesto online, fueled by the kind of hatred that he sees and hears from those in the highest positions of power in this state. He said, "I have come to repel the Hispanic invasion of the state of Texas." And then he walks into that Walmart, and the city that doesn't lose 20 people to murder in a given year, because it's one of the safest cities in America, not despite, but because it is a city of immigrants. That troubled man takes the lives of 23 people in a matter of minutes, saying, "I came to kill Mexicans." That is not who we are. We are so much bigger. We are so much better than this. But the only way to do it is to win these elections and replace those who do not represent our values with those who do. Last week, we mentioned the heroes of the past like Jane Lovell and Sarah Weddington and Linda Coffey, 3 young Texas women who prevailed upon an all-male United States Supreme Court to win protection for the right to privacy, to make very personal, very painful decisions without government interference or intrusion 50 years ago. If those women won it then, I believe Texas women are going to win it back again in 2022, right? But I'll tell you this, and Rhonda, if you don't mind me saying this, my good friend Rhonda Hart is here. I want to tell you something. 230 weeks ago, on the 18th of May, 2018, she lost her daughter, Kimberly, to a school shooting not too far from here at Santa Fe High School in Galveston County, Texas. Now, Rhonda would be forgiven if after that devastating loss to her and her son Tyler, she said, "You know what, I am out. I want no part of politics or public life or anything whatsoever, because nothing I can do will ever bring Kimberly back." But instead, she got in the front of this fight and advocated and pushed and came up with an idea that she's called a safe storage law. And it's pretty simple. To avert a tragedy like that one at Santa Fe High School, all she asks, as a former Army veteran and gun owner, and at the time a school district employee at the very district where her daughter lost her life, she said, "If you've got a firearm in your house, just keep the damn thing locked up. And that will protect lives going forward." She met with members of Congress, Republicans, Democrats alike, suffered the indignity of meeting with Ted Cruz in his office, survived it. Earlier this year, that bill was passed by the House of Representatives because of Rhonda Hart's advocacy. So not only do we overcome these challenges, we are overcoming them right now through the leadership of people like Rhonda. Rhonda, we love you. And lastly, Sitting right next to Rhonda is Brett Cross. Now, Brett Cross, 21 weeks ago, lost his son, Uzziah, who he called Uzi, who was killed along with 18 other children and 2 teachers in that classroom in Uvalde. 21 of our fellow Texans, our fellow human beings, killed 21 weeks ago. And in those 21 weeks, the governor who's called a special session to go after CRT, called a special session to go after transgender kids, called 2 special sessions to go after our democracy, could not be bothered to call a special session to protect the lives of our children in the classroom. But Brett Cross is not taking this sitting down. In fact, he camped outside of the school district headquarters in Uvalde to demand accountability and justice for 245 hours straight. And not only did he get that at the school board, he's going to get it at the very top of the ticket for the governor's race in Texas on November 8th. His courage, his tenacity, this is a hero who's overcoming the odds right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Rhonda Hart and Brett Cross, this is the best of us in the state of Texas today. Thank you for you guys. All we need to do is to follow their example, and we are going to win this. You ready to win? You ready to win? Are we going to win? All right, let's commit ourselves to doing the work to win this. And now, if you'll hold your places for 30 seconds more, I'm going to ask Rochelle Garza and Lin-Manuel Miranda to join me right here on this platform, and we're going to take 4 selfies in each direction so we can post this and prove that we existed. And even more, we'll look back on this on the night of November 8th when we're celebrating this victory.